50 billion naira every month on subsidy. They pay more on subsidy. Instead of Nigerians to now pay less, Nigerians also pay more on getting the products. A lot of scam happened. All right. And this showed so much and choked the entire economy. Somebody said a bag of cement jumped from 1,400 naira to over 15,000 naira at a point. Well, just under Tinubu. But under Bukuwari, a bag of cement jumped from, 1,400 naira to over 5,000 naira. But in a space of 11 months, under Tinubu, where subsidy was gone, these economic gurus that told you, share statistics, now statistics you go chop, they have been cooking the figure and they have been bombarding you with some of the figures, making you believe that you can see the economy is this one will come down and that one will come down. So in the space of 11 months, according to them, the inflation of Nigeria jumped to 31.7%, which is not true, but let's work with that. And what does that mean in reality? It simply means that as subsidy is gone, as well as inflation jumping up, it's not even inflation, it is hyperinflation. That's if you have to really work it, should be somewhere around 400% in Nigeria now. The minimum wage remained 30,000 naira, just in case I forgot to add that to what I have said, okay? However, in a space of 11 months, the price of petroleum per liter jumped from 165 naira to over 600 naira. A bag of rice jumped from 35,000 naira to over 80,000 naira. A bag of cement jumped from 4,000 naira to over 15,000 naira, then down to 12,000. Now they are negotiating about 7,000. None of this is visible as we speak right now. So a liter of petrol, like that of diesel too, a liter of diesel jumped from over 900 naira to over 1,800 naira. Then it came down to 1,700. And yesterday, Dangote is going to be selling diesel, imported diesel, and it's going to be selling it to the marketers for 1,200 and something naira. And some are already saying that same diesel has already come down to 1,400. So the old scam just keep playing itself in that same economy. And we have a name for it too, voodoo economy. But here is what they always expect. You see the progression of the destruction until it got here. Now, where it is right now, without taking responsibility, okay? So they want you to believe that once they bring the number down, even if the number is not reflective economically, all right, they still want you to be grateful. Come on. The dollar has come down to 1,250 naira. Why can't you just be grateful? It's coming down. Oh, okay. We are still waiting for it to come down to 600. I'm talking about the same people that destroyed the country to the point that not only that the exchange rate is ridiculous, the Naira itself lacks any real value. And now the report we are getting now is that this whole thing as well is actually making so many of them multi-billionaires. As we are complaining, as everybody is paying the supreme prices, I'm talking about real life issues here, where people are unable to afford their medicals. They have the money, but the money has been cut out right there by the policies of these rogues. But all of these are actually like back-end economic, somebody called them the economic assassin or economic buccaneers or economic saboteurs. That's the popular one, okay? So they choose to undervalue the Naira, all right? Because in the long run, for them, it pays. But for those of you who are really running businesses, day-to-day businesses, that are involved in the basic economy there, which keeps the whole country running, right? You will be paying you will be paying the price of their own greed. So let me explain what I found out. Normally, if you have a country that in 80 years, in case if you don't know this too, not only that APC, Egbekebe, destroyed Nigeria, like the way you probably sees it or other people sees it, that's not the only thing. For 8 years, APC, Egbekebe, Bukuwari, they spent over $7 billion, if you convert the money, on electricity, generating electricity in Nigeria. And guess what? They generated zero. And how, I mean, what does that mean? A lot of you were alive, and you are still alive now. When the Nigeria National Grid, Nigeria National Electricity Grid collapsed on several locations. At a point, it actually became a normal thing. Because when these criminals came in 2015, Nigeria was reported to be generating 7,000 or 8,000 megawatt of electricity, the whole country, okay? And they were only distributing about 3,500 of that. So what happened to the remaining 4,500? That remain mystery. That is why when they tell you, they will give you two figures. The first numbers they will give you will be the numbers they are generating. Then they will also give you the number they are distributing. And the question you probably should be asking is, how come it has become more difficult to distribute the numbers you are generating for years? Because majority of it are lies. But let us work with that. That the reason why Nigerians didn't have all over the country have 24 hours electricity was because they were generating the electricity amount. I mean, so they are distributing. Start with generating. They were generating the amount of electricity that is only needed to probably power only Lagos. And they are generating that for the whole country. Now they are distributing just the amount of electricity that is only probably would be useful to power few real industrial hubs or areas in the country for the whole country. So that is a failure on itself, right? Right? But you would expect those change criminals to change something. For 8 years, they added 0 megawatt to electricity in Nigeria. 8 years. A lot of you remember the story of Obasanjo's $15 billion electricity money or power money, Mambila Power, and this one's a scandal. That scandal. You probably remember that very well because it was amplified by the same APC, Egbekebe, when they were shouting for their change. I remember this video.
We have no blinker of electricity. They spend more than $60 billion. They forget that transmission line is a super highway for generated electricity and power. They could not even make a down payment for a roasted corn for that electricity.
That's not the remix. I had to play you the full clip of what that bunker said. Okay? So it's their propaganda. And for clarity, Obasanjo did not spend 15 or 16 billion on power. Okay? So the true story is that Obasanjo's government, right? They plan to build 11 different independent power projects across Nigeria. And it's going to be worth $16 billion. But before Obasanjo left power, Obasanjo started this 11 power projects. And the government of Nigeria, and when the independent power project, it is not wholly sponsored by government. It was meant to be private sectors and the government partnership where Obasanjo they tried that time. But here is what happened. The government of Obasanjo eventually paid out $3.6 billion from their part, which mostly ended up in the probe you are hearing today. The money was partially stolen. You get that? But APC, Egbekebe, they have repeated that 16 billion for years. And a lot of you right now are probably wondering, oh, is that true? Because I actually thought he spent 16 billion. So what happened after? Obasanjo forced a sick man who wanted to retire jejely to go and deal with his health problem, Yaradua. Since Obasanjo couldn't get his third term, he foisted a sick man on the country. And you know what that one did? The first 6 months, he stopped the project entirely and launched a probe because there were allegations that billions of dollars have exchanged hands in this issue of power, integration of power, whatever. They had different funny names, right? For all these funny things too, right? So Yaradua launched a probe that he never saw through before he died. And when he died, that already took 3 years away from whatever independent power project Obasanjo muted. And whatever money they put towards it, or the probe after it, everything just went down the drain. Because as Jonathan came, he pursued his own thing. And that's the real story. But what about APC, Egbekebe's 8 years? How much did they spend and how much, megawatt of electricity did they had? They spent over $7.6 billion. You probably don't even know that. No? You see that NNPC? People before Mele Kyari, people before this Mele Kyari NNPC, the ministers before him, the NNPC GMD before him, they've spent under APC alone, they spent over $6 billion. You hear me well? I'm not making this up. $6 billion rehabilitating or renovating, resurfacing. They always have this they do on your refineries. Do you know that? That Kaduna refinery, you know there is a refinery in Kaduna. That Kaduna refinery alone is drawing, listen to this, is drawing over 600 billion naira for less than 100 people working in a refinery that is not working. They draw salaries, okay? They draw budgets over 600 billion under Bokwari, right there in Kaduna. Port Harcourt refinery, Warri refinery, this refinery, that refinery, they spent over 6 billion. And they are still expecting it to work to produce to refine a crude oil for you so that you can access cheaper, petrol products. So this guy spent this much on power, and the Nigeria national grid collapsed 342 times in 8 years of APC. The last time the Nigeria national grid collapsed was in 1984. It was the first time and the only time that the Nigeria national electricity collapsed nationally on record was during Bokwari's time in 1984 until it got removed in 1985. Go and check the record. They are there. That was the guy that was to bring change. And he lasted for just 30 months. Bokwari lasted for 30 months in the 80s as the first and the only military officer, a soldier that overthrown a democratically elected government in the history of Nigeria. is the only person, and living or dead is the only person. And not just that. This deadbeat, I just keep saying, right? Now, under them, when they brought him back 30 years later, Bokwari and the Nigeria Electricity National Grid collapsed 342 times. Under this Tinubu, it has collapsed 8 times already. But they are the ones who will tell you, where is the power? They did not even make a down payment. So the point here is this, okay? The economy that has no real thing that you can look up to and say, if this continues, then we can begin to kind of say, so what they are now doing, taking shot at your Naira, while the rest of you continue to hang in the balance, hoping that, okay, they said this whole thing is coming down. How come other things are not coming down? Because they are all fraud, no lies. If they want to wake up tomorrow and give you $1 to Naira for 400 Naira, they can announce it if they have enough now that they can use to do that, instead of shooting at it and making it look like original. Because what they are doing is that intentionally, they are devaluing Naira, undervaluing it, because it is lucrative. It is lucrative if you are the type who loves to invest in bond. Okay, you like to buy bond, government bonds, treasury bond or treasury bills, right? If you don't know that, don't worry. It's like buying shares. You just buy it for a year, sometimes 6 months. It is a means of giving government or some businesses, okay, depends, all right, to give them the quick cash with the promise of high return. If you buy the bond in America, the government, the US Treasury bond, I heard that is between 4% interest, 3 to 4 or 5% interest. Okay. But Nigeria's Naira that they are issuing bond on, so that people can bring in their dollars and all that. So robbing Peter to pay Paul here, the money could be very good. The idea to the economist, is a good idea. It's like you having a quick access to cash, a lot of it, and quickly invest them in something that you know that short term, mid term, and long term, it's going to kind of pay back whatever interest you need to pay back to these guys. And in the long run, right, it is to your benefit. So for a business, you would have to cut out wasteful spending. Okay. Even in most cases, you have to cut down the number of your staff, because you have to cut down everything that is going to possibly hit deep into that money, because the money is timely. Now in Nigeria, they are giving Nigerian APC, Egbekegbe's issued bond for 18-19%. In some special instances, they are giving these investors 30% promise of interest, 30% of profit or return. And the money that they are taking is not being used. Like, for example, now let's say the government writes a bond and says, I said something about this last night, right? The government writes bond and says, this bond, we are writing the bond for 5 trillion Naira. And the exchange rate is going to be 1,200 Naira to a dollar. So everybody who is going to invest in it, they want, you see, if the exchange rate continues to drop, it is a gain for them, you know. Because what that does is that it will continue to increase their value. But because they have bought the value when it was low, I don't know if I'm actually explaining this better, right? Okay, I'll keep trying. You know what I mean now? So it's like you are buying something that is sold for, it is sold for example, 10 Naira, okay? Meanwhile, intentionally, some people decided to undervalue it, okay? And if you put 10 Naira into it and buy it for 10 Naira, and he begins to appreciate, because it is all like